we're just about ready. So I know you're all here tonight. So you want to be Italian, an artist's journey exploring her roots. Anna Filameno has written this memoir, and she's now going to perform it with some other actors, I guess, and read in a dramatic reading. Some of which I know, and one of which I don't know. So, of course, Jerry Myers and I are colleagues from the City University of New York, retired, thank God. And Roberta Ragone is an activist in the Italian American community, who I know very well. And this young lady is?
I'm Lulu Lolo.
Oh, you're Lulu.
I'm Lulu Lolo, yes.
And you're the one, my assistant Daniela has been telling me all about the wonderful exhibit that you did.
Oh.
So we'll have to talk about that
okay, later. Yeah, but I'm a playwright, an activist also, and I know a lot about the history of East Harlem because my parents were community activists there.
Very interesting. Well, we're going to do more of that. The idea, for those of you, I see a lot of unfamiliar faces and a couple of very familiar faces. But for those of you who don't know, the Italian American Museum was started in 2001. We moved here in 2008. Started in 2001 out of the exhibit that we did very successfully at the New York Historical Society. My colleague at that time, Philip Canastraro, was the curator of the exhibit. I was the dean of the Columbia Institute, and Jerry was a professor at Westminster Community College. And together, with some others, we put together a very fascinating exhibit that became the impetus for the establishment of the museum. And the idea germinated, and by 2001, we were chartered by the University of the State of New York as an educational institution, not-for-profit, in the state of New York, to explain and explore the Italian experience in America, but more specifically in New York. Although Jerry and Roberto and Lulu are experts in East Harlem, and I have family that came from East Harlem too, it really all started down here. This was the first large Little Italy. This had more Italian Americans by 1914 than any place else in the United States. It was almost 30 square blocks. By 1932-34, they had moved away. They had gone north, East Harlem, just 100 blocks away, but a little more than 100 blocks away, and then that became the next large Little Italy. This area has maintained some of the appeal or some of the look of the Italian experience because of the restaurants and the shopkeepers that have stayed here, but most of the Italians of that generation are gone. Very few of them, very, very few of them, just a handful are left still living in the area. But in order to really explain the experience, it really helps to be in the environment. And being here in this old building, which really was this epicenter of the Italian community, is very important. Those of you who just came in for the first time saw the Stabile Bank inside. Banca Stabile, was founded in 1865, not at this corner, but at 74 Mulberry Street. In 1885, he moved it here, and it became Banca Stabile, and they serviced the community. So, from these humble beginnings, Italians have gone off to do great things, and married and intermarried and become famous and very, very successful financially. So we want to explore that experience, and now we have the opportunity, thanks to scholars and activists that are both Italian and non-Italian, that are interested in this phenomenon. So without further ado, Anna, I said already too much. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing your play.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here. And in a way, it's kind of like, how did all of this start? And I remember when I was back in acting school at the acting studio, the director looked all of us directly in the face and said, "It's a very important question every actor must ask themselves when they step on stage." And he said, you walk on stage and you say, what am I doing here? So I thought, good question. And I think many of us At one time or another in our lives, Mother asked, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And it always seemed to me, yes, the world is a stage where we are the star of our own drama, and everyone else are supporting players. And they're the people that come into our lives, shape us, influence us. So who are these people? So I said, yeah, let me think about that. Who are these people? So it was my parents, teachers, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles. And what is this Italian thing? So I started looking into that. Oh yeah, beautiful, beautiful country, wonderful people, wonderful culture. Actors, singers, musicians. But there was one thing missing for me. One ingredient was missing. And that's what my book is about. Have any idea what that is? Well, it's how does it feel to be an Italian? What is the spirit of being Italian? And that's pretty much what my vignettes are about. When I was a little girl, I remember my mother said to me, she said, you know, when I was younger, my favorite actor was Rudolph Valentino. Of course, I was just a little kid, one in one ear and out the other. But somehow, I made this association. Here is something bigger. Here's an Italian name, and it's bigger than the Bronx. So, in honor of my mother, I wrote my first vignette would be about Rudolph Valentino. It might make you sizzle a little bit, but you can handle it. Rudolph Valentino. You know, when we think of Rudolph Valentino, we think of the glossy, black, luminous hair, those racy sideburns, red, formidable lips, dark, penetrating eyes, and that wild, passionate touch of his hands, smoldering kiss, and the wild and provoking image of this style sent women screaming. It was as though the world was invited to fall into his arms. The Italian lover, with those provoking sexual invocations. That was Rudolph Valentino, living on the periphery of an immensely powerful intimacy, handsome and passionate, a legacy of a great lover. He was kind of locked into an erotic frenzy of lightning impulses, adoration, and in the darkest corners of the most prurient desires. Here he was, living in a kind of forbidden fantasy. Was it enough, Rudy? What could you do with all that adulation? Even those who questioned your masculinity that brought you into the arms of loving both men and women did in the final analysis yield to your uninhibited love, making as though you were simmering with fire. If I chose, he said, I can make you love me. Is that what it was about? Love? Sometimes love has its own rules. It demands a kind of perceptibility because that's how it survives. It requires nutrients and extremes and often creates its own world. Rudy, had you felt that you were left with just the fragments? Did you waken only to sound of your own breathing in the night? Soft breasts, thighs, flesh. Did it matter to you whose genitals were in your hands just as long as you felt something? Isn't that what you wanted, Rudy? To feel something, to feel close and warm and breathing and a heart beating close to yours. I wonder, Rudy, did you hurt yourself? You were genuine, full-fledged dreamer, and you were close to your own darkness, where there lived a sense of the forbidden, a soft conflict. There was an awakening of the senses with you, wild with fantasy, a new hunger for the ideal experience, the body revealing secrets, hidden places, just waiting to be touched. Freed in compulsive, extensive instinct. And what did it take from you, Rudy? You who had so much adulation. Was there a mysterious fantasy of your own? Did you recognize the impetus for having died so young? The studio, he said, the glaring lights, the hammering of the carpenters, the noise and smell of it all, that is really home. You were the elusive miracle, Rudy. Even in the clinging to you were the lover separated from the adventure because, after all, you were an invention, a creation that you came to believe in. And the image of your penetrating presence gave the world, just for a moment, something to believe in. Could there be a dream of you, slow, warm embrace, of being made love to? Something of an elaborate jeweled flower opening their petals to you? Was it a performance? Something beautiful? Were they all Dante's Beatrice? What was it like in the dark? Did you know the difference? Whether it was a man or a woman? Or was it merely a chance to love? Perhaps it was a way to immortalize the symbol. At first there was the desire that comes like a breath of opium, hands on the breast, the love to is soft, burning its way into the flesh, bringing it all just a little closer. A man, after all, comes to you in the night with kisses. He overwhelms the senses. Is that the way it was with you? Warm and quiet? Finding the places silently? Oh, how sweet the touch. Flesh shimmering in the dark. You know, it was said that your lovemaking had been so wild that a woman had gone into a cataleptic fit. Cataleptic fit? Huh? Really? Well, what do you say, Rudy? Your place or mine? So there's people that come into our lives, you know, as we said, they shape who we are. They teach us something. And as I was studying acting, I was naturally very much inspired by Anna Magnani. And I think the thing that she taught me more than anything else was her humanity. You know, you saw that in her eyes. There was the fire, the compassion, the passion, the hurt, the anger, and the great capacity to love. And I think that she was able to communicate this, and that's what made her a great actress, her humanity. And tonight we're going to, the fabulous Lulu here is going to tell us about Anna Magnani.
I didn't want to block you.
Oh, no, that's cool.
Okay. Anna Magnani, Volcano. When I die, when people will be thinking of me, they should know that Magnani never betrayed them, and that Magnani never betrayed herself. Sun in Pisces. Anna, who would dare look into the heart of a volcano? Was it dangerous to be a woman, to love? Anna, where did it hurt most? In the darkness? Love lived only in the moment and brought you to the precipice, and there would always be that hunger. What was it, Anna, that made you feel like you were the only one that reached for fire. The set is quiet, lights turned on, the projector hums, the technicians prepare. A woman steps in front of the cameras. She is dark. Her eyes pierce you like a halogen, vibrant as though they are exploring the very depth of your imagination. She exudes an earthy sexuality like a magnetic wildness, erotic and sensuous. She has the seduction of Michelangelo, Dante, Da Vinci, Pirandello, the River Po, the scent of the Mediterranean, Roma and Duse, all carry the secret windows of the past. Eyes that stare at you like a womb with 1,000 embryos. The actress, she steps before the camera. Her voice is sultry. She gestures with her hands. A passionate magician becomes obsessed as she transforms herself. There is an untamed body sensuality, an animal attraction that pulled you toward her. With her comes an inexorable power. The camera rolls. Eyes elusive, warm, hot, proud, eyes that still haunt us. A drama in anonymity. Where did their magic come from? They are not ordinary eyes. Their addiction comes to us, and somehow we can never measure up to that daring pursuit to be alive and feel things. And what do you want us to feel, Anna? Mountains, Anna? Did you want us to feel mountains? Fragments? Passing things? Ones that pass as we squeeze them between our expectations. Did you want us to feel the woman, the universal energy that brought you closer to a tempestuous yearning? We can see it in your eyes. They were the instruments that brought us to the infinite dimensions of being a woman. It was like living in the submarine of the mind, where it only came alive at its deepest levels. This is where you lived, whatever it was you were trying to tell the world. We did not understand, and that is where you remained, untouched in your unimaginable journey. And there you were, with the evolution of fire and passion, with your dark marble eyes and your strange mystique, feverish, painted with the color of earth, and all your profound moments of solitude. The actress playing all the rituals, the characters wearing your masks, and we wonder which one of their disguises were you. There were times you could not wait, Anna, for the mystery that lay hidden, to feel what was there in the restlessness that took your breath away. And what about the fire in your eyes? Was there enough of the quicksand to challenge your feelings? Did those eyes see everything? There are things that fascinate us, bring us to a time of greatness, when we stepped out of our hiding place and recognized the impermanency of illusion. Was it ever enough? And in the journey, you traveled alone, profoundly moving, taking you to places that once were traveled by women of other centuries, where we see their inexorable presence in the corners of your eyes. They lay in shadows, waiting for you. Did you know, Anna, that we are all afraid? of being hurt. And whatever happened to the happy endings, Anna?
And then, of course, there's Fellini. There's always Fellini, right? And, I was thinking about the things that I learned from Fellini, because that's what this is all about, Who am I? Who are the supporting players? What did they teach me? And what makes me being who I am? And these are the people that kind of define me. So Fellini, I think what I got from him was, you can do anything you want to do. There are no limits. Go for it. And, of course, I'm doing something about him. Put my glasses on so I can see. And the quote, and each one has a picture, and the quote I use for Fellini is, there is no end, there is no beginning, there is only the passion for life. And I think that's kind of what he gave to us, that passion for life. Last night I had a dream. I was standing in front of a molten rock. Its hot fluid poured in a steady stream, and it spilled and all over the place. Slowly it slipped away, and its place was an immense black hole that had an infinite and free expanse. I wasn't afraid. I felt a sense of transformation, and I became anchored to something new and impossible that was about to happen. In my dream, I felt I had to make myself available to the change that was taking place. And the very process of waiting was part of the summons. Yes, I was being summoned. One can pass imperceptibly from one moment to the other and not recognize what is real, that life is moving all around us. There's a myriad of fragments that are constantly changing inside the mind. Suddenly, I was standing on a playground. Oh, I thought, maybe life's meant to be played. There were swings and sliding boards and merry-go-rounds. Clowns began dancing. Monkeys were on the somersault. There was music and the winds. It was a sensation of movement. And I felt a sense of rhythm I had never felt before, as though I were inventing myself. Things were growing and changing. I was strong and voluptuous and wicked. The world around me was colossal. I looked at the dimensions. Never noticed them before. Layers, intricate woven forms, and I was suddenly faced with a flaunting perception as though it was about to swallow me up. It was as though I would be whatever I dared to be. Could this be freedom I wanted? Was I free to fly on my own orbit, that I didn't fit into anything except my own story? Could I actually do things that were not expected of me? And then I looked around and saw it. My story, my own truth. And as I stared into my truth, it scared the hell out of me. And I sat up and suddenly realized I wasn't dreaming. I was in a Fellini movie. Yeah, Fellini. Transformer, dreamer, visionary, seducer. A man in search of himself. A wild man. A liar. What is the meaning of your films? Someone asked him. I don't understand them either, he answers. I don't seem capable of even suggesting an interpretation. language, another meaning, who never betrayed his unconscious or his intuition. That is the reason you're a liar, Federico, because truth is subjective, and it's only a story we tell ourselves. Truth is the last fabrication. It is the last expression at the end of the journey. It's subject to change, illusion, judgments, excuses. Truth covers our nakedness, and truth is exaggerated. Tell us your lies, Federico. Tell us we're allowed to live in our own fantasies and our own lives, to explore and believe in the imagination, and to have the freedom to evolve. The imagination is a kaleidoscope. Your films are all the free spaces where you let yourself dream, where anything becomes possible. That is your legacy and the great gift you have given the world. The excitement is not in the communication or in the essence of the message, but in the anticipation, the waiting for it. The message becomes ecstasy, and the biggest tragedy is when we give up the dream, because our dreams are the only things that give us passion to live. Federico, dreams have their own soul. The vortex of images and sensations rise like a sea of inventions, visions and colors and wild, wild places. Women with huge breasts, the magic realm between the exaggerated softness, a place of delirium, people flying, faces and masks, and a world of symbols, desire and passion, a universe of surrealistic memories, the fragment psyche, the restless vital, the evolution of the unconscious to all those mad, mad places. You got a problem with that? Oh, but I'm scared. And then there was the 60s and 70s. I don't know if any of you remember or heard of Diane di Prima. Beautiful poet, wonderful woman. And I think the thing I learned from her most at a time when women were really finding themselves and breaking through the chains, she was the woman that chose her own path, her own road. This is my road and I'm going to take it. So I call this her own road. Sometimes a road takes you to places you have not intended. You look for directions and can't find any. It's not a road anyone else has taken, and it has no end. Not anyone can travel on that road because it is your road, and all the twists and turns will take you to a place you've never been before, because imagination is the roadside. Why do we choose one road and preclude all the others? Why take that one, the one curving with twists and turns, passing rambling forests and open spaces, and never, never going in a straight line? That first step, where will it take you? The road is long and winding, and it has no boundaries. And in the distance, the sun is passing through, reflecting the road ahead. It is no wonder the dreams. How long is this one? Roads always take us somewhere. But do we know where we're going? And what about the woman who finds a road and makes it a piece of her own? Diane di Prima, an important writer of the beat movement, Zen and Buddhism and Sanskrit. She raised 5 children to boot. So many roads, Diane. There was a whole generation of women racing through a decade of rebellion, and somebody carried the flame of fire. Loba, the she-wolf, woman's consciousness set ablaze a stream of poetry, wove symbolism from everywhere, from the beginning, Lilith, Mary Magdalene, the ancient hulas who gave their bodies to impulse, their sensualities to nature, and have dared to live in solitude. The Lola goddess, the one you wrote about, Diane, unearthing of the female, connecting us to our strengths and dreams. Oh, so much of you, Diane, has gone into the uncovering. And what do we find when we look there? The dynamic life force, the firestorm. And where is the Lola goddess now? She has been a powerful light, tenacious and wild, emerging between the stones and mountains like bubbling hot springs, igniting her fire, provoking the world with her poems. The earth demands conquest, yet it is warm like the womb, and the litany of her songs carries the weight of centuries. The women who have lived before us, who have broken through the crust of the earth, demanding their place in the sun. Firestorms. Diane, what did you do in the intervals of your life? Is that what freedom is all about? The woman who danced to a different drum? You were the source of something happening, and we were all there in our dreams and our running shoes. We were there with our flags and our banners and our secrets, separating from our mothers because we had to, and defining our sisters because we needed to. The women of the 60s. We were there with your legacy, Diane. We stood with you because you were one of the great writers, and we were impatient, and we wanted the continuity of our voices immediately, and we're still riding the wave of sisterhood. How far are you from those days in Brooklyn, carrying the weight of your grandfather, standing in the shadow of Carlo Testa and Emma Goldman, a young girl armed only with her poetry, deciding which road to take? A road is as long as you make it. And Diane, where would you have gone if you had not taken that one? And we have our heroes too. And we learn from our heroes because they really give us the bigger picture. And when I think of Vito Marcantonio, I think of someone who taught me two valuable things. He taught me to never compromise my principles. And he taught me to never lose connection with my roots, with the community, with the world I live in. And those are two valuable lessons that I do carry with me. And Roberto Rodon, who's co-chairman of the Vito Marcantonio Forum, is going to tell us a little bit about Vito Marcantonio.
I am Vito Marcantonio. I am a congressman. I am told I am the sun in Sagittarius. And you only live once. And it is best to live one's life with one's conscience rather than to temporize or accept with silence those things one believes to be against the interests of one's people and one's nation. Vito, what is it like to be inside the wind, forever circling, sweeping in like a tsunami wave? A mind like that is mercurial, capricious, rippling endlessly, and it sometimes creates a tidal wave of such enormous dimensions that it becomes so compelling we are forced to give it relevance. The mind can be restorative. and with it grows a sense of optimism, because the energy that emerges has a tremendous power in order to sustain itself. A mind like that never loses itself. Vito Marcantonio, the urban maverick, had a mind like that. A man who lived all his working hours in the dream he belonged to. The rhythm of the streets was his mantra. The immigrants, poverty, the wild and boisterous sounds of the wind, the sounds that wind made as he rushed into his orbit, were all part of the adventure. Could he have done it all? The mad attempt to fight the system, defending civil rights, poverty, the working man, and the constant struggle to emerge with a power to transform politics. I fully realize, he said, that men must pay the great price in order to adhere to ideals. I fully realize that one needs guts. The guts to pursue such a course. And guts you had, Vito. How many streets did you walk down to find the same scattered silences? The same empty eyes staring back at you. The same exaggerated disappointments. The same contradictions. The same paradoxes. How much of yourself got lost in the complexity of the indigence that surrounded the limitations on 96th Street to 125th Street from Lexington Avenue to the East River? Were those your boundaries too? Who were they? The Italians, the Puerto Ricans, Jews, African Americans. How much of yourself did you see in them that you could not let go? Perhaps this was a way of affirming your life. A way of affirming your life, a slice you took for yourself, and it freed you from your past. East Harlem was your mirror, a place where you could not abandon yourself. It was a place where you played out the whole gamut of human life, reflecting the very essence of who you are. You were all part of the same fabric. Vito Marcantonio, fighter for the underprivileged. That was your stamp on the world. And when you felt most alone, surrounded with so much opposition, that's when you fought the hardest. That was the place where you remained true to yourself. To have lived so deeply and to have faced the onslaught alone. I vote my conscience, he said, and indeed you did. The power in having the believing, to have something to believe in, to stand in the midst of conflict and confrontation, to risk the very potency of your life, is more than any one man can endure. You, Vito, have passed through transitions nobly, and the triumph of your ideals is stamped in history. There are times when greatness becomes visible, and it lives for a while. It has its moment in the sun as it becomes luminous. And we take that time, we have no other resource but to let it dazzle us. It performs its perfunctory triumphs, and then it slips away for us to give reverence to. And that is the core of a man's truth, the fiber he is made of. The streets were your home, Vito, your Mecca to defend, but you had a rendezvous with destiny, didn't you? And on that rainy day in New York City, your heart made an inevitable and uncompromising conquest. You lost the battle. They found you on the very streets you loved. The streets that finally claimed you.
Tonight's evening was co-sponsored by Gerald Myers and the Vito Marcantonio Forum. Now, some of you might feel that Jerry needs no introduction, but he does. And I'm going to introduce him in words that describe him, and you don't need any other words, because Jerry is the top.
And you're the Tower of Pisa.
The Eiffel Tower.
And you're the smile on the Mona Lisa. Thank you very much. Well, I really love this book. I mean, I just fell in love with it. And I didn't read it from page 1 on. I just, at random, and through some strange reason, I had no will, or, I stopped at Valentino. and I just by chance, and it said, and here he said, I just had to get there. I mean, right away, just opened to that page. And he said, I am merely the canvas on which lovers print their dreams. I said, oh my God, oh please. And then I turned the page, and he said, if I choose, I can make you love me. So I said, this is a book worth living. I mean, it's not Anna Karenina, I mean, this is something else again, So I by random again, no choice at all. I was being guided to Casanova. And then Casanova, I mean, this is what happens after a certain age. You get certain, you get guided more. And then I found out Casanova, very dialectically he says, I don't conquer, I submit. Wow, this is for adults. I mean, being just 21, no, you got to show you're at least 35 and been through hell. Now, we're not talking like, a couple of hours here. You really have to been through a lot. Now, this is really, really an adult book, and I just love it. I want to thank you very much for producing this wonderful, to me, it's a lyrical poetry. It's lyrical prose poetry. That's what went through my mind. It's prose poetry, very highly lyrical and very condensed, and subjective and transcendent at the same time, and which is what we want. I like to very much that in So You Want to Be Italian, and when I bought the book the first time, I'm going to buy another one tonight. That Anna said to Jerry, are you sure you want to be Italian? Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. She's writing a sequel. The title of that is Forget About It. But in any case, this is a book that'll really get you going here. Now, so I just absolutely love the book, and but I felt a little left out because I wasn't going to read from the book, and I think I should read a little something from the book. Anyway, Anna's thoughts here. Nico and Bartolomeo. Nicola and Bartolomeo. What was it about you that captured the pulse of the entire world? Was it about the innocence we have lost, that place inside of us that have reserved, kept quiet, that we have not intended to confront? Had innocence become a kind of perversion, something we sacrificed in order to replenish the powers of a cultural establishment? Was it about justice, or was it about fear? Had fear become a kind of justification that sacrificed the spirit? Every once in a while, something comes along that pulls at the soul of a nation, and we can no longer remain silent. Fear bites at us from inside, scarring us as we remain bottled up and frozen, divided. Does this inner conflict affect our dreams, this battle where conscience surrenders to establishment? Is the status quo something we believe in? We've had a chance to confront intolerance, to escape free and untamed. In the meantime, a large angry crowd gathered, the smell of fumes coming from the smokestacks surrounding the prison permeated the air. 2 men were put to death in a narrow room, and the lights dimmed on that tragic morning. What was it like to know you were going to die? Did you wonder about tomorrow and what it would be like without you? Did you watch the sun from your small window and realize that life can be lived only in the moment? And here are the last words. These are the last words of Bartolomeo Vanzetti. If it had not been for these things, I might have lived out my life talking at street corners to scorning men. I might have died, unmarked, unknown, a failure. Now we are not a failure. This is our career and our triumph. Never in our full life could we hope to do so much work for tolerance, for justice, for man's understanding of man as now we do by accident. Our words, our lives, our pains, nothing. The taking of our lives, lives of a good shoemaker and a poor fish peddler, all. The last moment belongs to us. That agony is our triumph. Thank you very much. I met Anna really for the first time through something that I'm very happy to talk a little bit about, is the formation of the Vito Marcantonio Forum. And I keep wondering how this all began and where it began, and things come together. I got a phone call, this was 20 years ago. He doesn't remember it this way. Around 11:30 at night, and there was somebody very frantically on the other side calling from Boston. This is like, when you counted, you counted units and minutes and all that, Oh my goodness, I didn't get many calls, from Boston at that time of night. And it was a younger person, that was pretty clear. And it had something to do with Vito Marcantonio. And I think that Roberto had gotten an apparition. I mean, there was something going on that was quite remarkable. And that started us out on a journey that we've been on that's been really marvelous and very productive. And we've had lapses, but it's all come back in a remarkable way. And we're all bound together with this. That Lulu's father knew Marcantonio well, and I interviewed him for my book, and Lulu remembers Marcantonio and her father, and we're all bound together. And then I got in contact with Dave Giglio, because he started to get very actively involved with Marcantonio because of his grandfather. And I've seen many young people, usually men by the way, young men, that have a grandfather that they love and they connect with. And somehow Marcantonio is the connection. I've seen this quite a few times. And then we bonded right away, And my son got involved with helping his dad. Like I need help, with a rotary phone. That's my son. And so, whenever I have these problems, the computer broke. It really, it was, and he was it's like, I forgot the password. That kind of thing. So I'm running around, like, you know, to all kinds of tech support on the phone, and all the rest. And Adam's dad forgot, like, the password, like, you know, it's capital A, and then, you know, then you go on. So he's invaluable, and what a blessing. And so he started to help me with other things, was to put together a website. And originally, we had one website, VitoMarcantonio.com, and that was a lot of essays and scholarly work about Marcantonio. And then we formed the Vito Marcantonio Forum, and Adam created Vito Marcantonio Forum.org. Please go there and find out all about us and our activities and everything else. So, it just goes on and on. I mean, we're all drawn together, attracted to this figure, but not just as a cult, like a man or something, which is utterly extraordinary, but everything around him. The whole experience of the Little Italies, where we are today, for example, and the other great figures coming out of this world. Leonard Cavello, great educator, Fiorello LaGuardia, but also a type of politics that is sadly missing today. And I think we feel the loss of the American Labor Party and the unions, the great unions we had, and all of the fraternal organizations that help the immigrants maintain their languages and their cultures, and all of the fight against reaction and anti-Semitism and racism. And everything seems so feeble. We make our efforts and it doesn't add up. We don't seem to be building. And so we want to, in some way, we can't go back to this other time. We can't do that. It's not possible. But to resuscitate and revive and recover the memory of all of this, and to put it out there and see where it goes. And it really is going pretty far, and we're getting a lot of interest and a lot of attention from people. And what is so good is how the members of the Vito Marcantonio Forum are taking up creative projects. Dave Giulio, his videos. I mean, talk about Fellini. I mean, this is like, this is Fellini and Eisenstein that synthesized. I mean, it's just incredible. I particularly would like to recommend that you check out, go to YouTube, Vito Marcantonio, and then Remembering a Hero, Dave Giulio's film. The film is from last year's, our first visit to Woodlawn Cemetery, where Marcantonio was buried. Why was he buried in a Protestant cemetery? Because the Catholic Church wouldn't bury him. So we need to look into this and see what happened and why that could have possibly occurred to such a wonderful, saintly man. So there's a lot to do, and not to be, we're not at all morbid about this. We have a good time, and there's a lot that we can do to go on this venture to the Northwest Bronx and visit the grave sites, by the way, of other progressive people. LaGuardia, who's close by, that was Marcantonio's mentor, and cultural figures as well, Miles Davis and Duke Ellington and Celia Cruz, whose politics were not progressive, but who was very critical for the progressive community in offering the maintenance of the culture of the Latin people, so that they wouldn't just be Americanized and wiped off the map. Anyway, I'm going on a bit, but I do really want to invite you to join us, and to certainly, if you're interested in hanging out with us and helping to promote other events and take up projects of this sort, and we'd love to see you too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going to take some questions and answers. Anybody in the audience want to direct a question?
Anybody has any questions?
I've got a few.
It's over.
No, it's not over. Jerry, I have a question to ask you. You mentioned Marcantonio and the progressive politics that he had. How would you compare his movement to the progressive call for politics today?
Well, I think it was a much more hopeful movement because there was more direction. We was talking with another member that couldn't be here tonight, my very good friend Charles Bayer, and over lunch, and I think what we were saying today is that the progressive people, they don't have a strategy. We have no strategy. We keep reacting. There's a demonstration yesterday in Midtown, and there's something here, and there's something there, and we get a subscription to this journal, we write a check. But there's no overall strategy. And I think the people on the other side have a strategy. And so even though their numbers are fewer, they win. And for example, the other side says that government is the enemy. We never say what Roosevelt said, and people like LaGuardia and Marcantonio and Cavella said. And what they said was, whenever in this system the government is unable to fulfill necessary social and economic needs, it is the responsibility of the government to do so. That was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, not Karl Marx. Whenever the private system, capitalism, cannot do what is necessary, housing, jobs, medicine, it is the responsibility of government to do so. If they can do it, fine. But if they can't, somebody has to do it, and there's no one else that could possibly do it but the government. But we forgot that somehow. We don't say that. I think it's the McCarthy era. I think the McCarthy era just beat the stuffing out of us, and that we've lost our courage. And what's missing is the courage of people like Marcantonio that really did stand up. I think that's what it is.
With the risk of being politically, bombastic or possibly, heresy, I'm going to ask Roberto. Now, Roberto, given our current mayor's stance on these issues, how would you say he compares?
The mayor himself? Well, I think that without going into details about policy, I do know that the mayor and a bunch of other people are looked at as a step in the right direction, right? Is in terms of an overarching view of things. So, for instance, Elizabeth Warren, right, and Bill de Blasio and a few other people are always looked at as they're not necessarily compared to Marcantonio and LaGuardia, and I think it's partly because there's still an amnesia about the past. Part of this organization is about creating a frame of reference, right, for that people should look at. And what I like about this organization is that, and another reason why I'm hoping that you all attend this year's 60th anniversary of Marcantonio's passing, right, is that one of my big things was that Italian-American history, I studied public policy, by the way, in graduate school. Italian-American history offers...
At Harvard.
At Harvard, right? But I didn't have a car at Harvard, yeah. Exactly. But that it offers a frame of reference, a model for studying the Italian-American experience, for solutions to public policy problems that can address contemporary problems. I think that there are elements of Italian-American history that should be written up into case study, both for business school or public policy schools, schools of education. So Marcantonio and LaGuardia in terms of leadership and bringing about coalitions, multiracial, multicultural coalitions. Cavello in terms of education, right? I would even throw in Petrosino in terms of community policing, this whole thing about community policing, and Petrosino was that involved. Right. So A.P. Giannini, there's this whole talk about the banking crisis, right? A.P. Giannini, the way he basically bailed out San Francisco after the earthquake, is a public policy case study. There's one more that Ferdinand Pecora. It's amazing that we didn't. There's an author of a new book on Ferdinand Pecora. He was at the Calandra Institute, and it's amazing that lesson should be obvious even without the book about Pecora. But the author of the book said that one of the reasons why his investigation, that was the tail end of the Hoover years and the beginning of the Roosevelt years, against the banks, all the scandals, right, was because he lined up testimony and allowed people to tell stories and anecdotes. he just figured out that stories and anecdotes are going to mobilize the media and mobilize the government, right? And according to the author of the book, he said today there was that opportunity, and the guy who was the chair of the committee, the congressional committee, thought that anecdotes were like a digression, that the testimony had to be statistics and data. So what happened? The media didn't get mobilized, the politicians didn't get mobilized, and we're still complaining about this bailout where the banks weren't held accountable. But if we had studied Pecora, if we had studied A.P. Giannini, if we studied these other people, we could. I love how Giannini elevates the potential of capitalism, and Marcantonio is the personified critique of capitalism, and it came from the very same community and with the same strategy. They both use community outreach, right, to get their point across. And it boggles the mind that the Italian American experience, include my own alma mater, Columbia and Harvard, they still don't know who Leonard Covello is, right? I don't think that like the School of Education at Harvard and Columbia, which is supposed to be the best education schools in the country, I don't even think they know who Covello is yet.
I went to Columbia, I told them.
Huh?
You did?
Good, yeah.
That's terrific. But I want to ask the women too. I mean, you have some very strong Italian women in this book. The role of women, I think, has been underappreciated, and that's understatement. But it really does speak to the strength of these personalities and what they really offered. Would you want to say something about that? Either one of you?
You mean about the women?
About the women, yeah.
Well, no, I was raised I'm an only child, but all my cousins were women. So we lived together, and they were very strong women. I grew up with strong Southern Italian women. So it's natural that I would go for, strong women. So, that's part of my history. Is that that's what I grew up with.
I think what I'm saying is that it's underspoken. It's not appreciated. It's not spoken about in terms of the strength of the Italian woman and what she brought to the forefront. And I think the women that you've pointed out in your book have are examples of that they only personify the strength of these, particularly to my mind, the Southern Italian woman, and the strength that she has. Did you want to add anything?
I was pleased with the women she highlighted in her book, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree that many Italian American women who are leaders in certain fields are not highlighted. My own mother, who was Jerry's best friend, my father and mother both devoted their lives to the people of East Harlem, and as the neighborhood changed, stayed there. And my mother, who basically did not have a college degree, went on to become a Republican district leader. She organized, worked at the settlement house, and was an amazing force of someone coming out of an immigrant background. She worked for 3 borough presidents, and not many people know the amazing contribution she made.
That's an interesting point. Excuse me, everybody. I don't want to monopolize everything. Please, if you have questions, interject. But your mother was a Republican district leader.
Right.
Let's say Republican today.
Yes, I know that. I always have to qualify that because people don't remember the times of John Lindsay and the liberal.
LaGuardia was Republican.
Right, exactly.
Edward
Corsi, who I remember as a child.
You really?
Yes,
Okay.
I grew up at LaGuardia Memorial House.
I don't think the labels bespeak the people.
Right.
And I think particularly this is my feeling, and this is why I don't belong to a party.
Right. And neither do I.
I don't believe in parties.
And neither do I.
And because parties change from time to time.
Exactly.
And depending on who's leading them and what the direction is all about.
Right.
Whereas the Democrats may be progressive today. I think the Republicans were very progressive at another time.
Right. Well, I think when my mother, part of that was that the Republican Club, in a way, in the neighborhood was a club, was a community, was part of how that came about, the involvement. And my mother worked for 3 Democratic borough presidents. And everyone calls her their favorite Republican. She also was, I can't remember all her titles, but she was involved in the National Republican Women's Group. And also when, I remember one time when I think they were at some convention with Rockefeller, and they were all demonstrating for women's rights. I remember that, because my mother would say that.
I know there are certain issues that the Republicans or Democrats, Labor Party, Progressives, they
Right.
cross party lines. Roberto mentioned my alma mater and another way, the Columbia Institute, when I was dean. Senator Columbia, staunch Republican, but for the people. And that institute wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for his efforts in making sure that discrimination was addressed at the university. And yet I don't think these institutions necessarily do the work that they were originally intended to do today. They were started on those same type of noble principles.
Right.
And that's what I see. But what happens in time, I think things morph. I think establish. This is my opinion. I'm not proselytizing. I'm theorizing. As of time, they morph. They become more of the establishment, whatever the establishment is. And as they become more of the establishment, they lose the essence of what they were really all about. But I do see some efforts in the area of progressivism coming to the fore again. May not be the same as it was before, but I have to think, and I give Bill a lot of credit, or Mayor, a lot of credit for standing up for the issues he's standing up for. I think he's really, I really think he's sincere. And whether he's been successful so far. Yeah.
Could I ask a question to Anna? I would like to ask you a little bit about your method of writing. Like, how do you do this? I mean, how do you pick a topic? And then how long does it take you to write one of these vignettes? And to talk about your process, your writing process.
Well, no, I don't really have a process.
Inspiration.
Yeah, but it does, I just get a feeling of what I want to say, and then just comes out.
How long does it take you to write something?
Well, wondering if you take one evening or if you take maybe 2 evenings. It doesn't take very long.
Wow. Very good. Very, very good.
I just have a question about the women you chose. I didn't know Diane DePrima had 5 children. That was news to me tonight. Was she married? I didn't know. They have 5 children by the same man, or just she created a family? Or I was curious. But there were so few role models for women, and it was difficult. I didn't, when I was growing up, I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. I didn't know Diane DePrima or Anna Magnani. I knew the nuns. I knew the school teachers. I knew the Virgin Mary. I mean, it was very difficult to find role models. Growing up in New York, you had more advantages. There was more diversity. But I felt like I grew up in a medieval village, so I was curious. And then when I came to New York, I was in the 20th century, to go to school. So I just, the role model thing of women, especially pre-feminist. And I worked in media, so I was involved in a lot of those great women's class action suits. That was around the time I was starting my career, when Newsweek started the first class action suit for women to get equal pay or to get jobs above researcher. And then the Times did a class action suit. And then NBC did a class action suit. So all of these things women had to fight to move up above a certain level in media. And then, of course, it filtered out. But finding role models was so difficult, and so I'm just struck by it.
But there's so many, yeah.
Yes, and that we have the consciousness to recognize them. But then,
Well, we have social media now.
well, yeah, that's another thing.
I even have a mafia woman in there.
You have what?
I even have a mafia woman.
Oh, my goodness.
I wanted to say one thing because I was talking about my mother who maintained being a very traditional Italian wife, and and I always say my mother was a feminist and didn't know it in a way, but she did an amazing thing at the settlement house. My parents ran the settlement house. She organized a mother's club to get the women in those days in New York, people now go everywhere. In East Harlem, you never went beyond 96th Street. You never went downtown. So she organized the women to go to the theater, to take them, try to get them out of the neighborhood. Rose did an amazing job.
That's very interesting because really the parameters for women growing up, my mother was the supervisor of the 7th Ward in Providence, which is an important ward in Silver Lake Italian-American community, and she oversaw all the voting there. But that was, and she had an 8th grade education, but that was kind of as far as it went. And, and what they could do is they could go to novenas on Tuesday night, as long as they cleaned the house and cooked and everything was done. There were just certain things they could do to express their independence. It was very limited.
Exactly.
So it's interesting, to hear you talk about your mother.
Frank Sinatra's mother, Dolly, was the war dealer for in the Italian, Little Italy in Hoboken. I was born in Hoboken. And so, but that was the poorest area of Hoboken, the north, the southwest corner, worst housing, a little Italian. Where I grew up, the Italians went to their own churches, and it was very, very, very separated. And but his mother was a real force, but it was not typical. It was. My guess is this was the Hague machine. It was not just Jersey City. The Hague machine was all of Hudson County. It must have been 13 different towns, little working class towns. And but my guess is she was the only woman probably in Hudson County. That would be my guess. I don't know how I could prove that today, but it was an extraordinary leap. And she produced Frank Sinatra. She got a job for her husband, by the way, which is no small matter during the Depression. And for an Italian, he got a job as a fireman. Now we could go ho ho ho, but all the firemen in Hoboken, everywhere in Hudson County, were Irish.
And he used an Irish name as a fighter. I think he was a lightweight boxer, and he used an Irish name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is all very, and I think with Anna's book, it's a wonderful mix because we all know Frank Sinatra, but we're getting a different angle from the community, and this wonderful quote. Where Frank Sinatra said that, this wonderful quote, that when he said, he goes, I grew up just desperate to get out of there, and then late in life I found out how much I took with me. It's wonderful, wonderful. He was smart. Frank was a very smart guy. Yeah. And, but, so there are new people, people that are familiar figures, that we're getting a new angle on. And then there are these unknown things. And I must say, it's interesting, as progressive as guys are, we're still guys kind of thing, even when you're gay, you're still a guy. Well, I didn't really venture to find out too much about Diana Prima before, but now this really does interest me more. And I know that she was also a very left person and very active in the movement, and that's important, too. I'd like to, if you don't mind, Lou, I really loved your mom, you know that. And my mother had died, and when we, at the same time, we were in a group called the East Harlem Historical Organization, and in many ways that was the predecessor for the Vito Marcantonio Forum. Roberto participated in that. Gil, he's not here. Gianni, he was very active, myself and others. So there was a kind of bridge over to that. But I remember it was just so extraordinary that we would meet in the Museum of the City of New York, and you lived on, that was, on 116th, way over. And I would say, I'll wait for a cab with you, and I would just walk her, and she said, no, I'm all right. And she would shop along the way. She was 80, And then when she got home, there'd be a call, and we'd talk what went on at the meeting, gossip and so on. So it's these wonderful, wonderful women, are well represented in the book. And also the radical side, I think, is represented, which is what I've done so much more.
And make a role model.
We should probably give people a chance to buy the book if they...
able to role models to
Yes.
their strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that Tina Madani included a photograph.
Again, a figure that Tina Madani that we've forgotten about. She was a great
Not everybody
photographer.
knows.
International figure, really.
Yeah.
You know, great, one of the greatest photographers in the 20th century.
Well, and I would like to know that book. Is it coming there?
It could be crumpled or it could be straight from the mint. Or $20.
Right, right.
And I know it.
Would you sign some books for us? Would you sign some books?
Yeah. Right.
Anybody's interested in the book?
Well, I mainly did because I called and you said these schedule things, and then I sent them to Melissa. I sent the flyer to Gloria
Well, good.
and her husband. I sent it to Marina to post the flyer on East Harlem Conservation.
Oh, good.
And then I put it on the calendar.
Oh, good. Oh, good, good, good. That's all that's great.
What did you want to answer?
Right. So I'm going to be. I think it's got Robert Rodriguez. I'm going to be in communication with Jose Filameno, with the state senator. So I spoke to the head of member services. I was giving the name of the head of member services handled by the events that the speakers involved.
Right.
So basically, I asked.